Good morning, virtual universe. It's Zach again, and I am here to do week 6 of my poetry blog. It's interesting because most of the time, right before I get down and sit in front of the camera, I have this flush of nervousness and this flush of terror. Like, how am I supposed to talk to a camera? Even though, for all practical purposes, I'm just sitting in a room with my friend babbling. That being aware that people might actually watch you and people might actually comment back is not a feature that I had fully put in my head about this experience. But a few weeks ago, my topic was on gentrification, and I spoke about queers and how gentrification was basically weaponized as part of homophobia to decrease our power. And I was at a party, and a friend of mine was like, "Girl, your blog is good, but your gentrification thing was triggering in the following ways." And he gave me a very intelligent and gentle read around how being a white person, when I speak about things like gentrification or when I speak about things like race, my position of privilege has to be unpacked for the audience so that I don't come across as just some ignorant cracker making blanket statements about major problems that affect large groups of people. And I really appreciated that. And as part of the conversation, he also gave me the name of a poet that I'm going to read later on today. And it's Martin Luther King Day weekend, and it's this beautiful, amazing post-global warming weekend in San Francisco. It's absolutely gorgeous, and everyone has 3 days off, and my Facebook is blowing up with all sorts of amazing things from Dr. King, different speeches about war, different speeches about class, different speeches about capitalism, and then, of course, I Have a Dream, the most sort of like famous of all the speeches that anyone my age can recognize in our culture. And it's also a time where people are blowing up my Facebook with things like, shit white girls say to black girls, shit white girls say to Native Americans, shit DL guys say. And as much as I love the shit people say meme, I'm particularly fascinated with all the ones around race, and I'm particularly fascinated by all of the ways in which unpacking white ignorance and white privilege is starting to come to the surface, and that we're in a space now as a people that maybe we're going to start really doing some hard work around what it means to be privileged, what it means to live in a culture that's entire heritage is based off genocide and slavery. What does it mean to try and make meaningful reparations in our lifetimes to the earth and all of the peoples who've had to suffer under a false paradigm of supremacy? I think a lot about environmental racism, and environmental racism takes so many forms that it's hidden from our daily lives, yet is a constant feature. We use computers, and we use stoves, and we use microwaves, and we use all these things that require a tremendous amount of mined materials and a tremendous amount of oil. Yet we know that the molybdenum mines are not in the United States. We know that the gold mines are not in the United States. We know that every diamond in the world is soaked in the blood of African people. We know that the largest oil spill on Earth currently is taking place in Nigeria, and it makes the Horizon disaster of last summer look like nothing, and yet there's no global outrage. It's getting like less than 100 words per column inch in the biggest papers in the world, even though it's a full-scale catastrophe. It's a full-scale environmental catastrophe that only affects the people of Africa, and therefore the people of the first world, the rich and privileged nations, are not interested in it. This sort of racism is the underpinning of our entire global system. We have to have farmers of poor nations bring us food and bring us coffee and bring us our drugs at incredible suffering to the land and incredible suffering to the people, and we get to invisibilize all of that suffering with maybe a fair trade sticker if we're lucky. I don't know what we're supposed to do about this. It's like one of the major themes of my blog is I don't know what we're supposed to do. I keep waiting for this revolution to get here, and I don't know how to be helpful. And I don't know how to be helpful, but I do know that when we talk about things like populist math, 99%, that we as Americans, most of us, even the poorest amongst us, live in the top 20% of the world economy. And that is our job to make sure that our government and the WTO and the UN and the World Bank understand that we want a global reprioritization. That we don't want to have there be third world countries where people are starving and poor. We're not interested in a system that necessitates impoverishment, that necessitates racism as a tool of control for resource management and resource flow. We don't want to live in a culture where all environmental devastation is somehow easily justified by being in somebody else's backyard, and we can just turn away and say, oh, it's not happening here. Too bad for Pennsylvania, they're fracking. Too bad for Africa, there's oil mining. It's not happening in San Francisco. I love it here. And I don't want to live in a world where my privilege invisibilizes other people's suffering. And I don't want to live in a world where my privilege is a major point of oppression for most of the rest of the world. And I think that we, as the upper 10% or the upper 20%, have a duty right now to petition all the governments of Earth and say, no, 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 I don't want this system. I want everyone to have food. I want everyone to have the opportunity to advance their life in the way they want to. And I don't want to do it on some large-scale, plastic-covered, like consumer culture. I want people to have access to meaningful lives and meaningful diets. Everything else we can do without. So since it's Martin Luther King Day weekend, I'm going to read Essex Hemphill, and he is an American-born poet from Cincinnati and Columbus area. He wrote several books. He died in 1996. He was a liberationist on almost every front. He connected the struggles of the lower classes across race and across continents. He worked heavily on feminist issues. He was amazing around environmental things and bringing even environmental consciousness into gay clubs and environmental consciousness into circles where it maybe had been previously outlived and outshone by other causes. This is a wedding poem that he wrote, and it's funny, I Googled him and I read through like maybe 60 of his poems trying to decide what to read, and I came to this one. It's called An American Wedding. It was released in 1992. In America, I place my ring on your cock where it belongs. No horsemen bearing terror, no soldiers of doom will swoop in and sweep us apart. They're too busy looting the land to watch us. They don't know we need each other critically. They expect us to call in sick, watch television all night, and die by our own hands. They don't know we are becoming powerful. Every time we kiss, we confirm the new world coming. Every time we kiss, we confirm the new world coming. With the rose whispers before blooming, I vow to you. I give you my heart, a safe house. I give you promises other than milk, honey, liberty. I assume you will always be a free man with a dream. In America, place your ring on my cock where it belongs. Long may we live to free this dream. I think that poem is a killer. I think it's so amazing. And, he wrote it long before there was a gay marriage struggle. And the line, when we kiss, the new world emerges. And I think that that's a big part of it, is that every act we can take for our liberation, every chance we get to empower ourselves, we birth this new world. That the revolution is not going to be some giant sweeping event we all got to watch on television. The revolution has to take place inside each one of our hearts, unpacking our privilege, unpacking our own internalized racism, unpacking our own internalized homophobia, unpacking our shame, unpacking our misogyny, examining our lives and saying, what can I live without? What can I do without? What can I not be? What can I not think? These are all questions that are going to help us get further and further towards the goal of revolution. One of the jokes I've been hearing around is everyone knows there's no such thing as 2013. And maybe there is such a thing as 2013, or maybe we're going to get a whole new calendar to reflect the new advanced civilization we bore. But if there's no such thing as 2013 in 2012, we're going to get it done, and we're going to make sure that the world's population knows that we as privileged Americans are on their side, and that we know that our lifestyle is based off of their suffering, and that we're not happy about it, and we don't want to help it anymore. So thanks for listening to my rant about racism, classism, and environmentalism. And on January 20th, we're going to be down at Justin Vivian Bond Plaza, the former site known as Justin Herman Plaza, all day long, closing the financial district. And I would really love to see everyone who lives in San Francisco down there, helping us make sure the 1% knows that their economic policies are unjust and we're not interested in them. And if you don't live in San Francisco, I'd love to get a videotape of you doing something wherever you are. See you in the streets.